right, but I remember assembling model cars as a kid, how much fun that was, gluing little pieces together, making them all pretty and all the details and getting it all right. And once you get it all done, you get this cute little car you can put on the shelf. Well, check this out. Life-size model car. I got all the pieces laid out here in the driveway, but got a little bit of everything. Tail panel, floor pan, trunk floor, rocker panels, wheel houses, quarter panels. So if any of your guys' cars out there need any of these panels replaced, well, I'm about to show you how we get this all done here in the two-car garage, and we make it happen. But even with those model cars, at least you have some directions, you know, step 1, step 2, step 3. But with this stuff, there is no assembly manual, there is no directions. But I can show you how we get it done. It seems to work pretty good for us, and the results, they come out pretty nice. So you don't want to miss any of this. But again, where do you start? That's what I'm about to show you. And the place we're going to start on this car is the outer rocker panel. And the reason being is if you look inside the car, I pulled all the carpet up, well, the last video or so, and then these panels are just glued in with some kind of RTV or some kind of silicone and a few pop rivets. So this actually exposed a lot more of the damage. And the inner rocker panels, which I knew were not in that great a shape, well, they're going to need replaced. So if I cut this whole floor out and the inner rockers out, don't have a whole lot of tying the car together, because if you look at this outer rocker panel, it's not in that greatest of shape. We have some rust holes here and down the whole thing. It's pretty soft around the whole side of the car. I'm going to replace this first, and then we'll get the body all trued up and squared up and ready to cut this whole floor out. So step 1 for this car is this rocker panel, and reason being is I need it in place to help keep the car together while I cut the rest of it apart. What I plan to do here is this rocker panel, of course you can see the rust here, I'm going to cut it here just below the body line. So if we kind of use this as an idea, we're going to cut this straight across the whole thing just below that edge of that body line. I'm going to try to seam it in there because there's no reason to replace all the good metal in here because I don't want to get in behind this. This is actually good clean welds. There's no rust festering in between the panels. There's no reason to get into that. Now if you had rust damage in here, replace the whole thing, but we're going to try to keep as much original metal as possible, number 1, and number 2, let's make this nice and make it easy. So we're going to cut straight across here. That'll cut the top loose, but to get the bottom loose is a little different story. A couple things to keep in mind if you ever get doing one of these. Inside of here, if you look carefully, there's some spot welds right about here, 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 and here. There's an actual inner brace inside. Not just the pinch hole, there's also another brace in here, so we've got to cut that loose. It only comes back to about, 10 inches or so. So it's probably about here forward. I'll have to work on getting that loose, but as you can see from the pinch weld here, we got some rust issues and some swelling between the panels. So that's what the only way to fix that is cut this all out. That's why I decided it's going to need an outer rocker. This inner rocker is the piece in between. It's all swelled up, and this is the floor pan. So we're going to cut all that out and replace it all. Then you also have the same thing back here in the back. This is the rear part of the car. Of course, you see some more of the rust here. We've got some issues. We've also got another inner brace right through here. There's a spot weld, spot weld, spot weld. So we got to cut that loose. And then we'll cut this whole pinch weld loose here. And then we're going to replace the outer skin, basically. All right, we got it all cut loose now. Every once in a while you find a good prize inside here, so I figured I'd grab you just in case there's something cool hiding inside here. And looks like nothing really but rust. So, ugh. Yeah. Yeah, nothing cool hiding inside here. This is that inner brace I was talking about. You got to get to it. So I cut it loose and we'll pop all the spot welds loose off that next here. But nothing really cool inside, but that's what it is. All right, we got that all loose. Now you can really see, this is the inner rocker panel. There's a big gaping hole. This is still part of the outer. This is that brace. It actually came out pretty decent. It looks pretty good. So I got all the outer rocker panel broke loose from the door jamb piece here. So that's ready to go. I'll clean up the edge of this and treat it with some weld through primer. And even this here doesn't look too bad. Very light surface rust here. So I'll treat that with some kind of rust converter. But the inside of the rocker, it popped me all the way. These spot welds actually held up pretty good, which is kind of unusual. Normally they pop right loose. So it's one of the first gen birds that that one actually put up a bit of a fight. So I'll clean up that edge there a little bit, hammer and dolly, and clean that up, and I'll weld through primer to that. But we're almost ready to go ahead and just kind of clean up the edges here, trim the new rocker panel, and get it into place. Okay, got everything all trimmed back, cleaned up, and ready to go. What we're gonna do is we're gonna put some weld through primer on all these surfaces. Like I said, this is not rusted out. It's one of the best ones I've ever taken apart. But you can see there's a galvanized coating on this car that actually survived. There's some of those pop rivets they put the floor in before. It must have had some kind of treatment done to it too, because it really held up pretty good. Unfortunately, still got to replace the inner rocker. This is still part of the outer rocker panel, but I've got it ground off flat because I'm gonna lay the new one right up against it. Then when I cut all the inner stuff out, this stuff will disappear. But this kind of gives me a point of reference where I need to be, because I'm gonna section this together. This edge is all prepped, and I actually put the new rocker panel in here behind this, and I'll drill some plug welds here and weld that to that, just like it was for the factory. Then we'll just butt weld the whole thing full length. And you'll see the same thing back here. Here's our inner brace. It's actually in really nice shape. So same thing, clean up the bottom edge. So I'm gonna put some weld through primer on this. Then we'll start getting the new rocker panel test fit. I'm gonna weld that right along just below the seam. Come in here and butt weld all that. By the time it's all done, it'll look like a seamless repair. Of course, getting ready to put it back together, I slipped a big pile of dirt, but that was all inside this rocker panel. So quite a bit of dirt that holds moisture, which promotes more rust. So definitely a good idea to get that out of the way, get the opportunity. But what I did when I cut it apart, I used this about 3/8 inch wide tape to give me a nice straight line. I put it just at the edge of the rocker panel. Then I'll take my cutoff wheel here and trim that off. That'd be the reverse of what I did when I cut it out. So that's all I gotta do is make this one cut and then make the jog here for the back, and this will be ready to put in. Okay, weld through primering is all finished, ready to go. Got the rocker panel here all cut, ready, test fitted, and ready to start doing some welding. And so now, this part here, I'm not really worried about how pretty it is, because this whole inner rocker, which you see here, unfortunately, is going to get cut out, thrown in the trash, and just go to the scrap pile. So I'm not really worried about trimming all this off, because when I do the inner rocker, this is all going to come off with it also. So like I said, next thing is we'll get this thing all tucked up inside here and get some little spot welds going, get everything all lined up, make sure it's all good, and do a continuous weld. Well, there you have it. Got it all welded, a little spot weld at a time, little spot, and finally get it all the way stitched front to rear. And all you gotta do is just kind of lightly buff this weld down, get it all leveled back off, and that's all welded in solid. All right, all the welds are all buffed down, ready, prepped and ready to go. So this is all, say, welded across the top like I needed it to, and even here actually did a pretty good job here. Now, so the next thing is put a couple screws to the bottom into that brace, and actually we're gonna call it this rocker panel installed and done. Okay, get you down here. I got the screws all put into place, all tied into that inner brace on the rocker panel. So when I move these screws later on and actually do plug welds, right now I'm just gonna leave them like this, so I can, if I need to take it loose to move this around, I can. But I did the same there to the front. If you look all the way up there, I got those screws put in just the same. So That's going to wrap it up for installing a rocker panel here at home and your garage. I guess you could say time-wise, total invested to the project minus the seating, right about 25 hours. I've got all the parts tabulated. I'll share that with you here pretty soon, what I've bought so far, all the sheet metal all floating around here in the garage, including the rocker panel we just installed, which we have right at 3 hours for installation. Cutting out the old one, cleaning up the old metal, prepping it, welding it in. Now, it's welded across the top, so I basically just got to do the bottom pinch weld where it meets the inner rocker and the floor pan, but we're not going to do that until a little bit later, because the next thing go around when you guys come back out here to play cars, we're going to rip that floor pan out of this car and start coming up with a plan to get the inner rockers, toe board, and all that fixed. And I've also got another thing that I want to share with you, why I did the outer first. Not just to also give us some structure, but there's something else that I'm going to show you, but you have to stay tuned or come back in and check in on us and tell you why. Another reason I wanted to do it first, but one of them, a little hint, is corrosion prevention, because that's the problem on these cars. But besides all that, I said 3 hours invested on a rocker panel done here in the garage. Not too bad. Just about completed. Looks real nice. So the next thing is, well, get you back out here to play with the floor. But it's 8:30. It's dark out. I'm hungry. So typical routine. I'm done playing for tonight. Glad you guys came out to play cars this evening. And, of course, we'll get back out here to grab the camera, and we'll do it all again, next week or so here. I got some time. I'll get that plan to get that thing torn apart. But nonetheless, anything you'd like to see, let me know just the same. But I'm going to call it quits for this evening. You guys do what you got to do, and we'll catch you guys next time.